Welcome to the PR Bunker podcast, where we go beyond headlines and dive into the real stories behind mission-driven leaders who are building impact that lasts. Today's guest is Chris Mercer, founder and CEO of the Family First Initiative, a nonprofit dedicated to leadership development, financial literacy, and intentional legacy planning. Chris shares the origin story behind Family First Initiative, what compelled him to step into this work, and why he believes strong families are the foundation of strong communities. We unpack the often avoided conversations around accountability, wealth, values, and generational impact, and why leaders can't afford to separate professional success from family dynamics. This is a conversation about responsibility, ownership, and building something that outlives you. And now, here's your host, CEO of the PR Bunker and longtime communications strategist, Don Martelli. Don brings his signature blend of strategic insight and real-world candor to conversations with leaders who are serious about making a difference. Let's get into it.
What's up, friends? Don Martelli back at you with a new episode of the PR Bunker. For those of you that know me, this mission-driven, impact-focused work that I've been on this journey has been near and dear to my heart. And everything I do is about just my life, my wife, my kids, and kind of building a better today and tomorrow for those people. So I put folks around me that are kind of in that kind of vibe. And through my work with Alignable, which is the largest networking platform for small businesses in North America, I had the chance of meeting this, talented, educated, smart, driven young man who's got a fantastic idea, which spawned a nonprofit, which he launched about a half a year ago. And it's taking off like gangbusters. So I am honored and happy to welcome Chris Mercer to the PR Bunker podcast today. Chris, stoked about our conversation today. Mel, welcome to the bunker.
Thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate you.
Let's get into it, man. Let's hear your story. Why this nonprofit? Why now? Tell us about your work.
All right, Don, I appreciate you for having me. My name is Chris Mercer. I am the founder and CEO of Family First Initiative. We're a community-based nonprofit organization with programs that focus on leadership development, financial literacy, legacy planning, and wellness education for parents, youth, and caregivers. I started the nonprofit because I grew up actually as a professional dancer, and I spent a lot of time on the road, traveling, performing. And in my travels, I was able to experience other cultures and also sit around tables with things like financial literacy. So, returning to my neighborhoods, taboo, we couldn't talk about bills. We couldn't even talk about mortality in the sense of, insurance and things of that nature. So in my 40s, a couple years ago, I had an idea to bring together, a group of people that had, kind of different mindsets, but all thought towards legacy planning and thought all were forward thinkers from different industries. From there, that turned into bringing together a group of my family members and my wife's family members to, kind of have a further discussion, because it's very important for us to actually do it all on one accord. So we all sat together, we talked over, a lot of these concepts, and what came out of it was a Family First Initiative, again, primarily focused on leadership development, financial literacy, and legacy planning for our family as a whole to be able to create things like trusts and wills and make sure that we understood that in passing on legacy, we're not just passing on stuff, we're passing on a mindset, or we're creating and fostering a mindset for us to actually teach our youth what it is to carry on a legacy, what it is to maintain and grow what's being passed on. So I began teaching my children these concepts, but I saw that there was a disconnect between my children and their friends because their friends weren't getting the same type of education. So I started to create programs that could incorporate the whole family model, not just the youth. We did start with the youth, and we saw, great progress in them being able to, begin thinking about their future, not just what they want to be when they grow up, and figured that if the disconnect existed between my children and their friends, then the disconnect probably exists between their friends and their parents. So we created a whole family model with shared language. So we're able to facilitate these programs to where we're teaching the youth about these principles. We're also teaching their parents and caregivers. So when they do go home from these programs, both the youth and their parents or caregivers, they're able to effectively communicate around their dinner tables or, wherever they're having these family-based or legacy-based conversations. And when I say shared language, it means that families are learning and using the same practical terms when they're talking about leadership, when they're doing their legacy planning, holding each other accountable and just being responsible. But they're able to effectively sit around the dinner table. I use the premise of Common Core, right? The current Common Core education, I'm unable to relate to that when it comes to, helping my kids with their homework. And that kind of travel that carries over into the legacy planning thing as well. Some children understand legacy planning. They look at LeBron James and they look at things like that. They never attribute that to their own family and what their family values and their family morals are. So being able to translate that into programs where they're able to learn about these principles and then go home and communicate with their parents who also learned about these same principles of accountability and responsibility, it just closes the communication barrier that a lot of times we face between the youth and their parents, and also amongst youth and amongst parents or caregivers.
Mm, that's incredible, man. So it's like I love the all good ideas start with like an incident, an issue, something you see, and I love the fact that this has been grown organically with starting with you and your family. I mean, I think that's an incredible part of this story, and the fact that you're doing it in the way you're doing it for your community, your family, because oftentimes, as you discussed, these topics aren't on the dinner table, right? They're just not
Right.
part of the language, and I think that for you to be able to, see it and identify it within your own structure to kind of move this forward. For an organization that's only, a handful of months old here, it sounds very mature, like you've been really kind of grinding through this. Where are you today? I mean, what's the programming look like? I mean, how from the idea that you sat down at the table with your family and said, I have an idea to do this to today, what does the infrastructure look like for the nonprofit? What do you offer for families in terms of programming?
So currently, as far as programming, as I stated, we do facilitate the whole family dynamic. So we have programs for the parents. We have Dream Moms, which is a program that helps, support and strengthen moms. It's again a structured leadership and planning program
Mm,
that helps female caregivers that are seeking practical tools to strengthen family leadership and long-term planning. A lot of mothers, they carry a lot of responsibility, especially leadership within their households. But they tend to lack the structured environments that are necessary for practical planning, for financial awareness.
hmm
And we bring that to the table. We have a similar program for dads called LEAD, which is Legacy Empowerment for Active Dads, that
mm,
also provides a lot of that same structure. We actually create custom curriculums to go along with these programs so they're learning specific principles along the structure. We have Rise Up Youth. Again, for the youth, it provides a lot of that same structure for learning leadership, learning about legacy, and learning about financial literacy. For all of those programs, we actually created a curriculum called the Legacy Foundations. We broke the word legacy down into an acronym. So L is lead with purpose, E is empower others, G is grow every day, A is act with integrity, C is connect with community to create change, and Y is your impact matters.
mm.
Right? So we structured or we've ingrained that into all of our programs. So every program that we do, whether it's health and wellness, whether it's financial literacy, sticks by those core principles. But we don't forget the younger ones. So we have the younger youth program called TRIO, which is the Reading, Inspiration, and Outreach series, which also starts to instill a lot of these principles, age appropriate, of course, on meeting them where they are through literature and through book series that we're currently in the process of putting together. We deliver these same principles. So now it becomes a reading and connection thing between
Mm.
the younger youth, the older youth, and the parents, but they're all
Nice.
learning these legacy foundations.
That's great, man. So, how long have you been running this organization?
So I've been doing the work for about 15 years,
Okay.
but I started the organization in June of 2025.
Got it. All right. So yeah. So clearly you've been mentally and through just your own personal experiences doing this stuff. But I think it's amazing that you put a structure around it and created the nonprofit in that short time frame. It's great you've had a bit of a head start, but still you're running a business, right? Which is can be a challenge because you are a dad, right?
Yeah,
And you do have a partner in the house, right? You have this team you work for. And when you and I first spoke, you mentioned that this has had an impact not just on people you work with and families, but also yourself and your family.
for
Love for
sure.
you to kind of talk about that dynamic, with your kids and your wife and spouse, that sort of stuff. How's it changed you as a man?
So it's forced me to be more hold myself more accountable. I'm actually able to have conversations with my family about holding each other accountable, about
Hmm.
the types of responsibilities that we take around the household, how we carry ourselves, out in public. Actually building a structured legacy, incorporating, our insurance and making sure that we have things like trusts and wills that are structured, which we've begun to create. My daughter, my oldest, is 16. She's a junior in high school. She's able to more effectively effectively communicate with her teachers and her peers. She actually takes on a role in the Rise Up Youth Group as an empowered leader. One of the youth leaders, she actually takes over some of the sessions. So she's learning to be more outspoken and be more confident. My son actually has, he's actually his grades completely changed from the beginning of the school year to now in learning a lot of these leadership premise.
That's
With my
incredible.
wife, she never been really good at public speaking, but through the programs like Dream Moms and another program that she is the director of, which is called Wings for women with diabetes, she's able to open up and utilize her own voice and being able to do more public speaking and being more confident and just feeling supported, all around. And I think that's the big thing. One of the big takeaways as a family is that internally and externally, we feel more supported
Mm,
in our endeavors.
that's great, man. It's an incredible dynamic to have this sort of this environment to work within at the home level, because it's you doing the work and teaching other folks that having these conversations, putting in wills and trusts, and being able to be confident in public speaking, all these little elements, kind of common sense stuff. But to your point, I mean, you've got to it has to have structure. It's got to have some roadmap to it. And it sounds like that you have this sort of lab at home that allows you to refine these things, which I think is fantastic. And clearly, the results are both personal and, from a professional standpoint, people are benefit from knowing you and your family and getting to be involved in Family First Initiative. But clearly, after you've been working it for 15 years and started the organization officially 6 or so months ago, this is not the end of the road for you. This sounds like you haven't even stepped on the dance floor just yet. So what's next, man? I mean, you clearly have been quote unquote slacking, which I'm just joking because you haven't been, but like, look, as I've gotten to know you, I mean, I'm a pretty, energetic, run through a brick wall kind of guy, and it's rare that I meet somebody that kind of has that same tenacity, especially in this space. But you're one of them. What's next, bro? Like, where are you going with this thing? What are you excited about?
I mean, to the moon and beyond. To be honest with you, where I want to keep creating programs. I want to keep, giving back and leading in the community. I want to, uplift others to be able to do the same. It's a tough job doing good works. It's not tough to be a good person, but a lot of times it does become tough to, obtain the resources needed to give back to the community, or just actually wake up and dedicate the time to doing things for others. And I think removing the selfish part
Mhm.
of being a human being allows us to look at things in a different way, and allows us to actually be able to see the struggles that others struggle with. Like, again, I created a program called Wings for my wife because she has type 1 diabetes. I personally don't suffer or struggle with it, but I am a caregiver. So
Mhm.
as much as I hate to say the word burden, it does become a burden on anyone that's being that is a caregiver. So being able to structure those programs and things of the like. Again, I created a program called Five, which is Family First Initiative Vitiligo Empowerment. My 13-year-old son has vitiligo, so being able to understand what it is that he's going through and show him that I'm here to support his journey. It kind of helps me grow as a person. It helps me, it helps my daughter to grow as an individual, to understand what someone else is going through. Yes, they are related, but
Mm.
at the same time, to be able to see what someone is going through and be able to act on that, be able to support whatever it is someone is going through, goes a very long way. So I want to keep creating programs. I want to keep growing these programs. Currently, we are based in Connecticut, but I intend over the next few years to grow these programs into national programs. No one can save the world, but I'm going to do the best I can to be as close as I can to, saving the world, one program at a time.
I love that. And I always talk about being the guy that's carrying the white flag in the middle of the war zone, just so I can make sure the story gets told and people can hear it. So it sounds like you got the same vibe. And clearly there's there's a personal, professional benefit from your perspective, and you do have a plan to scale, which is great. And what I hear in all of this is that there was a point where you had to get unstuck with your family, which you drove towards, and were able to break through that wall. I'm sure there are people listening to this right now, whether you're a dad, you're a young professional, you're struggling with your relationship with your mom or your guardian or your brother or sister. There's just stuff that's probably blocking you or getting in your way. And oftentimes it's sometimes easy to diagnose the problem, but it's hard to take that first step towards a solution because many people don't know what those solutions are.
Right.
So if you are somebody out there, just say pretend somebody's listening to this podcast as we speak. And as you're talking, they're like, yeah, I get it. I understand. Like, but they don't know where to start. What's your advice? Where would somebody start?
I mean, the first thing I could say, and this is one of my guiding principles, is stop stopping and start starting.
Mm,
right? Whatever it is that you're looking to do, whatever it is that you're passionate about, find your purpose in that. Find what it is that makes you happy. Find what it is that drives you to wake up in the morning, whether that be your children or, whether that be your career, whatever it is, just start, get it done. Whatever that spark is, find it, find that
mm.
spark and just, follow the path. It's really not as difficult as it may seem. A lot of us make it more difficult because we overthink what it is that we're looking to do. And I got to that same point. I kept overthinking, what do I want to do? How is it that we structure these things? Some people might not be in a fiscal position to, or financial position to be able to make the moves that they want, but at least if you start somewhere, right? Think of it this way. If you look 5, 10 years down the line, the person that you're going to become 5 or 10 years down the line, would they be grateful for the decisions that you're making today? Are they going to see the progress that you're making from who you are and the plans that you currently have today? Right? If you wait until tomorrow and the next day after that, if every day you say you're going to wait till tomorrow to start, then you're probably never going to start.
Mm.
Right? Find what it is that you're passionate about, stop stopping, and start starting.
Yeah, find your why, as they say, right?
Absolutely.
I love that. Love that. I mean, I think that there's so many of us get busy lives, schedules, calendars, people flying stuff around you all day long. People need things, and sometimes it's hard to stop and think of yourself and move someone just kind of move yourself forward. And I've gone through that personally. I've gone through it with my wife and kids, and as a family and friends that I've seen. And sometimes it takes a nudge, right? It takes an idea, it takes a spark. And for me, as I said at the front end of our session here, for me, it's always about my family. It's about the decisions I make to make sure that they can have a better life than I have. And we've got a pretty good life where we've lived comfortably and no complaints, but I'm hoping that my kids can do, bigger and better things and impact the world in a much bigger way than I have. And that's because I've had good structure around me as a kid. And
Hmm.
to your point about legacy and continuing that baton, I think that's super important because it's so easy to be distracted by the world and media and information and social media and all this stuff, and it detracts you from what really matters. And like, for example, with my kids, I've got two really golden principles, and they're pretty crass and they're pretty simple. But the first one is really say, focus on saying please and thank you, even when you don't want to, and it's really hard to do so. The second one, excuse my French, is don't be an asshole. Simple as those two things, right? There are times in life professionally where you want to literally throat punch somebody or like throw them through a fence or a brick wall, but you shouldn't, because just like cooler heads prevail, because you never know what's going to happen, and they might be struggling that day, and you might
Right.
need to understand where they're from, and then when when you really want to be the bad guy, sometimes you can be, but you do it politely. But sometimes it's just better to walk away and let them have their space. So I think it's so easy to lean in on the negative, and it's really hard to do things like what you're doing and stay on the positive. And yeah, let's fight the good fight. Let's shovel shit against the tide. But who cares? At least we're there doing it versus thinking about it.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
good stuff. So now, think about it this way. So when folks are, kind of struggling with these issues, whether it be a dynamic with your kids, your wife, your people you work with, it sounds like, Chris, you have, a variety of ways for people to get involved in your organization in some way, shape, or form, whether it be to donate or to be part of the programs, or if they just want to have a conversation. What's the best way that people can find you and find more about what you're doing?
All right. So currently, you guys can find us on social media.
Hmm.
We're on Instagram at family_first_initiative.
Excellent.
We're on Facebook at Family First Initiative. You guys can find us there. You can see, you can get updates on the things that we're doing. Do stay tuned for our website. It's currently in the works.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for volunteers. We're happy to have anyone come in and volunteer for any of the programs that we're running.
Hmm.
Definitely, sponsors and anyone that can assist with any funding or strategic partnerships. We're always out in the community. We're always looking to collaborate with other, community, people that are doing good works in the community. Again, anything that'll help us strengthen our program delivery. If you have an idea that you want to run by us for, something that we're looking to do in the community, or you're looking to do in the community, we're happy to assist and help facilitate whatever comes down the line,
That's
as
great.
long as it's progressive and forward thinking.
That's great. I think you're on the right track. I think finding individuals and members of the community that are vocal can bring additional people to the table, and finding corporate partners, just to continue to add those building blocks to what you've already built from the 15 years of doing it, personally, but also the last 6 or so months where you've actually put some structure behind it. So I highly encourage, if you are out there struggling with any of these particular issues as a young professional, or you as a dad or a spouse or a partner, uh, if you got, struggles with your kids and you can't get through them, not that, you're gonna, get the all the questions or all your answers, but it sounds like, Chris has lived this and his family has gone through this. and there's a roadmap for it. And I think that the things that you're doing is incredible. I think it's much needed, especially in those underrepresented communities. And the fact that you're local to me in New England, I think is fantastic. So go Pats! I know we get the Super
Go
Bowl coming up.
Pats.
We got the Pats coming up, the Super Bowl. So I know we landed there, but like quickly as an aside, I mean, what do you think about Sunday's big game, man? Are we gonna take it home or what?
So I have to be honest with you, Don. I've never been particularly into sports, as you know, my sport was dancing.
Yeah, which is a
But
sport in itself, man. Like I'm like, you could be Will Smith, I could be Hitch. I'm the guy that like doing all this crazy dancing. Like you can just slap me in the face and tell me to stay in my lane, and that could be my lane because I'm not that guy. But it sounds like you are, which is kind of ironic because one of the things you mentioned was, it just takes one step to kind of move some of these things forward, and it's
right.
like the dance floor, man. Nobody wants to be the first person on the dance floor, but something tells me you were that guy.
Yeah, yeah, always, always. And I mean, even when it comes to the sports thing, I love a good major event. So World Series, Super Bowl. I love just the gathering, the breaking bread, the sitting
Yeah,
down with friends and family, and these are points in time where we come up talking about these legacy conversations. And
yeah.
when it comes to the teams, I am particular to New England, so
There
I
you go.
especially watch any of those games. But I do go for whoever's winning. That way, I never lose.
There you go. I hear that, and I couldn't agree with you more. I go back to the photos of when the Patriots in the Super Bowl, going back to 2001, and I got photos of me and my kids when they were like tiny, and their Tom Brady jersey was like 2 by 2. It was a tiny little thing, and then they're now 22 and 20 years old, and over that time, every photo and every Super Bowl, Bruins, Celtics, all the stuff that we've experienced as a family, those just etched moments in time in my brain. I mean,
Mhm.
I've got this thing in my family with the Boston Bruins where years ago when I was 16 years old, I bought my old man this clock, and this clock has Bobby Orr on it, and he didn't want to put a battery in the clock until the Bruins won the Stanley Cup, and it took us 21 years to get to 2011 when the Bruins finally won the Stanley Cup. My brother, my father, and I watched that last game together. And after they won that Stanley Cup, it was probably the most emotional moment I've ever experienced in my life outside of being married and my kids,
Mhm.
especially with my father, who was kind of a blue collar worker. My brother's kind of a blue collar guy too. We kind of approach life that way. But like the three of us were. It was the tightest, most emotional hug we've ever had. So to crescendo this whole thing, sometimes sports is just not about sports. It's about the people around you and that experience you're in that moment. The wins, the losses, the hugs, the tears, and all of it. So whether you're a dancer or a Patriots fan or wherever else, I think what it all comes down to, and it's really what's in the name of your organization, is family first, right? And I'm
Family
all about
first.
that. So I appreciate you sharing the story. Again, feel free to follow up with Chris on social media across all the socials, Instagram and Facebook. I think you'd enjoy his story. He is very open to having these conversations, just to kind of pass on some of those learnings. So, Chris, I can't thank you enough for being part of the PR bunker here, but mostly importantly, taking this challenge on because it's really much needed in our society today. So, kudos to you, and I can't wait to see where this goes, man.
I appreciate you. Oh, also, if anybody's, if you're looking to reach out to us directly, you can direct message us either on Facebook or Instagram, or
Fantastic.
you can email me directly at chris@familyfirstinitiative.org.
Fantastic. Give us that email address one more time so people can hear it.
All right, that's chris@familyfirstinitiative.org.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, congratulations on this first step on the dance floor. I can't wait for you to see that you're busting out those hitch moves in the middle of the dance floor when you guys are growing. You have a nice new title and you've got a staff, and this thing has really grown. And thank you for being part of the bunker and allowing me to tell this part of your story. And I can't wait to do this again when you are grown at 3 times more than it is right now. So congratulations, and let's get back to work, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you for having me on. Fat shouts to the PR bunker. Fat shouts to Don. Thank you, and I look forward to continue doing good works and working with you even more in the future.
Absolutely, my man. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the PR Bunker podcast, where we go beyond the headlines and into the trenches with founders, builders, and operators making real moves. This show is brought to you by the PR Bunker, a strategic communications agency helping mission-driven and impact-focused organizations cut through the noise and tell stories that matter. Want to learn more? Head to prbunker.com and subscribe to the Bunker Briefing, our monthly email newsletter packed with a 45-second read that's stacked with value. We're talking practical PR and communications insights, networking tips, and strategies to help you navigate the moments that matter. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it.
We've got more raw, real conversations on the way. So stay locked in. Until next time, keep building, stay resilient, and remember, momentum favors the bold.